Today, guys, we're going to be talking about the Mission Impossible series. Now, this is a film series that I've seen bits and pieces of over the years. However, I had never fully watched all of them all the way through, and so myself and my co-host Jason went and we watched all of the 6 films prior to watching Dead Reckoning. Now, we're going to be watching Dead Reckoning later today, and so I'm not going to be adding that one to the rating list. However, generally speaking, I am going to be rating the first 6 films, and overall I figured fuck it, we're gonna be doing this actually over on our podcast, the Try Podcast. Go check that out if you haven't checked it out before. But instead of just doing like the thing where we kind of make our collective list, I figured I would make my own personal list so I can get that out there and get ahead of the content curve. So let's go ahead and let's get into it. Let's do this shit. So what do we have here? Let's go ahead and let's rank. We're not going to start with the first one. We're going to rank these kind of out of order. We're going to start with number 2. Now, number 2, I need to create a new fucking thing for. So let's go ahead and let's get into it. Number 2. Number 2 is the worst film by far. I absolutely could not stand any moment of this. The entire thing was a collection of horrible slow-mos, with some of the most absurd and over-the-top action that would work in maybe some kung fu, like over-the-top kung fu movies, but absolutely does not work here. On top of that, the story is just exceedingly boring, and I just could not stand any fucking moment of this. Now let's go ahead and let's get on to number 3. I think this is Mission Impossible 3. Indeed it is. Number 3 was okay. I'm going to say it was more mid. I'm going to give it a C. The reason I'm going to give it a C is because Philip Seymour Hoffman was amazing, but the rest of it was relatively unmemorable, and on top of that, they already overutilized the hyper-realistic face masks in number 2 and number 1, and so then they kind of just further did that here in number 3, and I really didn't like that whatsoever. Then we have number 4, which I believe is Ghost Protocol. Ghost Protocol was really fucking good. I'm going to give Ghost Protocol an A. I really liked Ghost Protocol. I thought that it was a really good action film and overall was just a lot of fun from front to back and had a couple of twists here and there that were pretty decent. I really liked Jeremy Renner's addition here, and it just kind of all flowed together really seamlessly. Then we have Mission Impossible 1. Now, Mission Impossible 1 is a fucking S-tier film. Mission Impossible 1 was more of a mystery film that you had to kind of deduce as it went on and had so many twists and turns that the following films tried to recreate but failed to do so in a meaningful way. I think it also really kind of touched on in a negative way how these teams can operate and funded via taxpayer money without ever being really questioned or having to answer to anybody, which kind of gets brought back up again later in 4, 5, and 6. But generally speaking, I think that this one still just touched on it in a more interesting way. And again, the entire twists and turns were just the best out of the entire series, and it still worked on an action level. Like the final action sequence where John Voight gets crushed by a fucking helicopter was absolutely phenomenal and quite a lot of fun. Next, we're going to go ahead and do Mission Impossible Fallout. So 5 is Rogue Nation. Okay, got it. 5 is Rogue Nation and 6 is Fallout. So we're going to do Fallout then. So Fallout, I'm going to say, is also an S-tier film, right? Because again, that was number 6. Yeah, number 6 is an S-tier film. I think it was the perfect action film. I think that the first film was an S-tier in the sense that it was a great mystery and it was a really good twist on the overall CIA kind of style of film. However, I think that Fallout does the CIA spy style film in a way that is absolutely fun to watch from front to back, and also has a great villain in Henry Cavill, who really plays this kind of at first seemingly kind of nonchalant everyman, and then he gets into these action sequences in the fucking bathroom that was really fun, or the final action sequence with Cruise was a lot of fun. And so generally speaking, the bomb and the tension surrounding the bomb, the way that the wife was reintroduced and utilized, all worked out perfectly in my view. Fallout, fantastic film, S tier. Now let's go ahead and get into number 5. I think that number 5 is a D. I think that number 5 is lower than mid because I think it is just very not memorable. I think it rehashes a lot of previously done things, which happens a lot throughout these films, but it does it in the least fun way possible. And on top of that, it just doesn't have a villain that I find to be very interesting. The villain of Lane, while he is a good motivation for Henry Cavill in the 6th film, in the 5th film, he seems very much like a bitch and doesn't seem very intimidating at any point. And so I just absolutely just didn't really care for that one and found it to be, again, not at all memorable. Where something like Philip Seymour Hoffman in number 3, while I don't think he brought the film up higher than a C, he had at least a memorable enough role, and there were some memorable scenes that were quite good. And so, yeah, that's where I would have my list for the current Mission Impossible films. And again, we're going to be watching Dead Reckoning later, and then we're going to be having a podcast where we discuss it with our boy Peter from Australia. So go check out the Try podcast and subscribe so you can get that podcast when it drops. So again, we have Mission Impossible 1 and we have Mission Impossible 6 at the S tier. We have A being Ghost Protocol or Mission Impossible 4. At C, we have Mission Impossible 3. At D, we have Mission Impossible 5. And at F, we have Mission Impossible 2. Although I will say I really like the girl in Mission Impossible 2, by the way. She's extremely beautiful, and on top of that, like, just has this fun, flirty vibe. But generally speaking, she is just used for her breasts, which is very uncomfortable. And on top of that, they never mention her again later on throughout the series. She just disappears and is never brought up. Again, another terrible piece of number 2. What do you guys think? Do you agree or disagree with any of my listings here? Let me know in the comments down below. Besides that, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram. That'll pop during the outro, and the rest of our links are down in the description as well. We have gaming sessions for gaming content, movie and smoking sessions for movie content, CrazyRocky for variety content, and the Try podcast for our podcast channel. All right, guys, I'll see you all in the next smoking session.
I spaced out of my head to the depths of the universe. It's a spell or a chance just to open up a newer curve.